it is Steph
and Nikki
from Dog Jogs. We are super lucky today because we have a guest speaker. Her name is Alecia. She is the owner and operator of Muttlife, where she is a Behaviour certified professional dog trainer, as well as behavior consultant. Her experiences span from managing a dog day at a dog daycare, as well as volunteering for local rescues as well. She specializes, and where her heart lies is with reactive dogs, where she kind of helps them cope with their struggling with their environment, and by setting them up for success. Her dog, Jack, his reactivity actually was a huge motivator as to how she began her course in becoming a dog trainer. She also currently manages at Sadie's Canine Stay and Play, which is a local dog daycare here in Edmonton. I just want to welcome Alecia. Thank you for joining us today. We want to talk about some effects of COVID and how the changes of COVID have recently affected our families, and fur babies included. What have you observed over the past few months with COVID?
It's been wild. It's been a ride for sure. And I'm sure everybody listening can relate to just the struggles that I think we're facing as people and how that trickles down into our dogs as well. I don't think months ago we could have anticipated that this would have been what our new normal looks like. And yeah, it's definitely brought some challenges for people, like really realizing, I know for myself, like how much we crave that social connection, and those weeks of isolation have just shown how hard it can be to just stay home. And as a trainer, and I'm sure you guys can relate as well, like just really relating that to our dogs and those changes that have happened in their worlds as well. I know that it's been a lot for everybody to take in, and it ties in really well to separation anxiety and the things that we're going to be talking about today. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm really excited to spend some time with you awesome dog peeps.
Awesome to hear it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're very glad to have you. So one of the things we wanted to start with is talking about a little bit about separation anxiety. We know most people have been home. Oh, a little bark here. Oh, a big bark here. We'll just bring we'll have Shiloh join us for a minute.
Oh, hi, Fred.
We're dog sitting.
Yeah.
So people have been home with their pups a lot. And so I think there's some worries about dogs having separation anxiety when people head back to work. So yeah, can you tell us what is separation anxiety?
Yeah, for sure. No, separation anxiety is one of those things with dog training that, like, she's an onion. There's so many layers and there's so many different parts to it. But I'd say, just for a basic definition, separation anxiety is a blanket term that's basically used to describe dogs who struggle to cope or struggle to settle when they're by themselves or when they're away from their people. So with all of the COVID times, I feel like there's been this roller coaster of, I know with my dogs personally, first getting used to, like, why are you here all the time?
Yes.
And then as we shift back into more of our regular routines, getting used to, like, oh, now you're leaving me again. So even the ups and downs of just that transition, aside from dogs who maybe had some underlying issues or insecurities to begin with, like, that kind of puts the separation anxiety definition together. But the big thing to look at, I think, and why we're talking about this is, when does that become a problem? So separation anxiety, when it is presenting as disruptive or destructive behaviors when a dog is left alone, that's when we might start actually labeling it and calling it separation anxiety. So back to the onion of the separation issues, I think it comes down to really looking at and determining, like, whether or not the pooch just needs a brush up on some house manners and better outlets for their drives or their boredom, or if they are truly suffering from separation anxiety and might need some help from a professional like me.
Absolutely. And that's why we're super grateful that, professionals like you are willing to help us out and kind of dissect that. And so that we can kind of, make everybody's life a little easier and less stressful in many ways.
Absolutely.
In regards to separation anxiety, are there different degrees that dogs can suffer from?
Yeah, for sure. Again, it's very multifaceted. So there's definitely, like with any behavior challenge, there's going to be varying degrees of those issues. So I think separation anxiety can vary from like mild separation issues, subtle signs of distress when being left alone that maybe dissipate and they settle in, or there is the more extreme cases where dogs are being very destructive, trying to escape from the house. I've even heard of dogs breaking out of plate glass windows out their front doors, like trying to get out and escape because the idea of being away from their people is so challenging for them. And that can actually cause dogs to hurt themselves, which is really scary and definitely more severe.
Absolutely.
So in that too, I feel like separation anxiety sometimes gets thrown around as just like, oh, my dog has separation anxiety. And you might have a dog who maybe just chews things or gets into the garbage. Whereas some dogs actually struggle from something called confinement anxiety. So lots of times people may think they have a dog that has some separation anxiety issues, but the dog might just not be super comfortable in the setting that they're left in. So that can stem from some struggles in crate training, or if you're leaving a dog crated before they have the skills to actually know how to be in the crate and that the crate is awesome, you might find that actually just switching up your environment at home could really help with those issues that you're seeing as separation anxiety, because it might be more about being in the crate rather than being alone. So things like an X pen, or like having a doggy bedroom where it's just a safe space without stuff for them to mess with or wreck, where they can still be secured while you're away.
Mm-hmm.
Or other dogs do quite well with just having free range of the house if they have the skills to be trusted with that.
Absolutely. No, I think that's important that you clarify that as well, because there is a difference. So if you're not treating the correct thing, you might not be doing a lot of good.
Yeah, exactly. And you might find that your issue is actually way more simpler with just some environmental management versus having to actually dive into a full training protocol.
Absolutely.
Right. So you kind of mentioned some of the signs of separation anxiety, but do you want to go a little bit more into detail about like what to look for if you're
Yeah, absolutely. So the interesting thing with dogs is in the worlds that we've set them up to live in, they are just masters of observation. Like they have nothing better to do with their little doggy times than to watch and learn our routines and those subtle cues. So some dogs who are struggling with separation anxiety, they might actually start getting upset at that morning routine, like anticipating that you're going to be leaving when you're getting your keys or getting ready for work. And that can just start manifesting as like pacing or more frantic behavior, being really clingy. And then when you do actually leave, there can be barking, howling, chewing, digging, trying to escape. Hey, bud. Hi. Trying to escape, or getting into trouble, getting into the garbage. So those can mean that your dog might have some separation anxiety, but it can also be signs that your dog's just a little bored and hasn't been shown better things to do with their time while you're away. So the things that I really look for when determining whether or not we're dealing with actual separation anxiety or just a dog who has too much time on their paws would be more when it shifts into behavior that's actually causing emotional distress. So those would be more extreme signs like drooling, frantic barking that really escalates, or they howl all day. You're getting complaints from your neighbors. They don't settle. There's lots of pacing. and destruction that would be focused more so around the exit points in the house. So if they're digging at the doors, or they're chewing at the windows, or house soiling. So if you have a dog who's typically quite house trained and they know their ins and outs and peas and poos, and they're having accidents every time you leave the house, that again can show that there's a little bit more distress going on rather than just hanging out at home and having to go to the bathroom.
Right. Thank you for distinguishing that.
Yeah, I hope that all makes sense. There's there's so many layers with all things training, and to kind of like take a little snapshot of it, like we're taking on a task for sure.
Oh yeah, and like, yeah, suppressing it in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, totally.
Look for these things, all of them, some of them, yeah. So what can pet owners do to help their pets or their dogs if they're feeling this way?
Yeah, like there's so many things that I think apply to the specific challenges we're talking about, but they also apply to the big picture of living with our dogs. So making sure that your dog has plenty of healthy outlets, like for their natural drives and desires. I say this a lot with training, but like many of the problems that we see as problems are just really natural dog behaviors for them. The problem is that they just don't really fit into our picture of how we'd like our human world to look with our dogs. So I find that when you're actually providing outlets and resources for them to actually get their fix that way, that the trickle down effect of behavioral challenges, like you can have a lot of shifts that way, which is really great. So the goal with any training, no matter what we're working on, is to really just motivate your dog to work with you to do the things that you would like. So making sure they're always being paid for and rewarded for those things that we really like them to do, and finding ways to prevent them from being rewarded for doing the things that they want to do. Right. So that's how it all kind of ties together. So setting them up with the skills that they need to meet your expectations. So training and behavior stuff, it's a lifestyle. Like it's all day, every day. There's no magical, like I wish I could just give you guys a button to be like fixed. Yeah. But it's a much bigger picture of that for sure. And I would love to give you guys some tips and tricks that our people watching here could implement into their daily life and hopefully see some success with that.
Yeah, that would be
fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah, I know a lot. Even some of our clients, I think, would definitely really appreciate that.
Yeah. So I think, again, talking about the big picture and the umbrella of the things we're going to do to help them out, the biggest thing for helping treat and prevent, again, preventing the separation anxiety before it becomes a problem is going to be way more constructive, but making sure that we're fostering independence with our dogs just on the daily. Like we as people have a tendency to micromanage a lot of things. So we're always telling the dogs like when to eat and where to sleep and when the walks, like we control so much of their little world. So by doing that, it can really encourage a dog to be really codependent and always have to look to you for, well, what's next? What are we doing now? So encouraging them to be more independent by building their own hobbies and self-soothing and self-occupying is super, super helpful. So like as people, like we have so many things to keep our times busy. We have so many outlets, we have hobbies, we have our phones and our Netflix and all the things to keep us busy. And our dogs really only have what we provide them with. So like imagine if going out in your backyard or looking out the window was your only connection to the outside world. Like that'd be really challenging. And many of us have just recently experienced that. the isolation of COVID. So really realizing like how hard it was to stay home and not have those outlets that are our usual social connection. And some dogs live their whole little lives that way. Working some things into your day-to-day life in terms of mental enrichment and brain games, like that is at the core of all of my training and behavior work. So providing enrichment, I know so many people are focused on the physical part of it, and you guys provide that for all of your clients as well, like making sure they get their walks and they get out and they get exercise and they get their jogs and they get runs, but really thinking about the other side of that, which is mental engagement and enrichment, because that comes together for the whole package, and it's just as important as the physical exercise.
Absolutely. And would you say it's more draining even sometimes, like the brain games and the mental enrichment and all that kind of stuff as well?
Absolutely. Like dogs they have such great stamina, and they're really, really physical creatures. They have way more endurance than we do as people. So the drain and the enrichment and the brain power that they expend in doing problem solving games and enrichment puzzles, you can get the benefits of like a 30-minute walk with a 10-minute puzzle. Like it really does pay off more when you're doing those things. So pairing that all together, rather than having a dog who's always up at a 10 and ready to go, when you're doing those enrichments, you can just help drain the tank a little bit. So the dog that you're dealing with on the day-to-day is just more fulfilled and more content.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's like, I could talk about enrichment with you guys literally for hours.
Yeah.
So to break it down into like a consumable thing for all of our people, I would love to just challenge everybody watching this to think outside the bowl. So rather than just the magical kibble gods presenting their little bowl with their portion and their food for the day, finding ways to incorporate that into brain games. On my Instagram, which I'll share at the end of this, I have some videos and some highlights in my stories of inspiration for things that you can actually use with your dog to be doing those enrichment games all the time with them. So setting out ways to incorporate mental exercise as well.
Fantastic.
And then, I think with everything, we want to start small. So with all of the changes that have happened in our world, the more we can know in advance and prepare in advance for setting them up to be left alone, the more successful they're going to be with that. So building those important skills before they actually have to practice them is super crucial. It's like swimming lessons, right? Like we start in the shallow end with our life jacket, we learn those skills there, and then we can move to the deep end. But once we move to the deep end, we're going to put the life jacket on when we go to the lake. So the skills really need to be like honed in and consistent and learned so that the dog can practice them when they actually need them as well.
Right. And that's so like setting them up for success as well, right? Like, and just they're more consumable for sessions for them.
Exactly, for sure. So yeah, if people can get in the habit of making the time away, the time that your dog spends away from you, making that be just as, if not more rewarding than the time they're actually spending with you. So feeding them when you're not around, like having an awesome puzzle toy and then setting that up for them to work on their own, or giving them a really yummy chew or a stuffed Kong and then just leaving the room. So getting them used to understanding that good things happen when you're not around as well. And just starting small. Like, I think that that's a really big thing with crate training, with separation anxiety. We just expect the dog to have those skills already.
Right. Yeah.
But we need to start with some training wheels. So getting the dog used to, like for people who are working at home right now, your dog doesn't necessarily need to be at your feet all day. Mm-hmm. So getting them used to being comfortable in another room while you're still there, and then building from that to actually like leaving the house and going out for a while, because they'll already have that skill and not need you there all the time. And then the last kind of points that I'd love to add in there is just so much of what we do and how we interact with our dogs affects how they react to us. So just making your comings and goings be easy breezy. Like, don't make a big deal out of it. Those big dramatic, like, coming and going, like, bye baby, I love you, I'll be back soon, have a good day, all of that is more for our benefit than for theirs. And it can really create an emotional roller coaster with your dog. So if before you leave, you're smothering them and showering them with attention, and then you leave for the day. And then you come home and you're again just as excited and just as worked up. It really creates a void in that space in between and gets them really worked up for that. So just an easy breezy, like coming and going with not much going on. Start distancing your attention like maybe 20-30 minutes before you're leaving the house, and then just don't make it a big deal. The more we make it a big deal, the more they'll feed off that as well too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you say in cases where someone had a dog who was exhibiting, I guess, some more severe symptoms of separation anxiety?
For sure. Yeah. Like, I think that, like, we're talking about all of this, like, in a perfect world, we'd work on building all these skills and giving them the tools to cope before you're spending time away from the house. We'd get that all practiced. But if people are finding that they are starting to already get back to work and be spending more time away from their dogs, they're noticing that they're having challenges and struggles in those areas, just knowing that there's support here for you.
Yeah.
And knowing that there's options to kind of get you through that hard time. Yeah. So I can think of a couple really fantastic dog walkers that I know of.
And we know doggy daycares also.
Right? So both of those are really great outlets in the interim for dogs who struggle with being left alone, because they can provide a little reprieve in their day to break up that time they're spending alone, and also like go out for a nice long walk, drain some of that mental energy. Or if the dog really, like in a more extreme case, like if they physically cannot be left alone, taking them to a daycare where they can be safe and happy and healthy and occupied during the day for those hours that their owner's away, that can really help buy some time to work on that training more when you are home.
Absolutely. No, thank you for breaking that down. I know, and like you said, we could obviously talk about this for days, weeks, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I think that does kind of give a little insight for people that might not know a ton about separation, or even recognizing the signs, or like you said, know about some options that are available for help.
Totally. And with those options for help too, like if they're working on the training at home, if they're reaching out to dog walkers and dog daycares, like if that still isn't solving the problem and it is a more extreme case, your dog is very distressed, working with a force-free trainer, like someone like myself who could help really break this down into a plan that would fit your lifestyle so you can practice that at home, as well as talking to your vet. In more extreme cases, sometimes medication or determining whether or not there's a health condition or an underlying issue that's contributing to this stress is really important too. And those things all paired together can really help accelerate your progress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for those people that are interested in private lessons from you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, right now my main platform is my Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram at my_Muttlife. And I also have a website, which is mymuttlife.ca. And you could also find information on the daycare. So Sadie's Canine Stay and Play. We have an Instagram as well as a website as well you could check out.
That's perfect. No, we'd like to thank you again so much for your time. We know that you are a super busy woman. But definitely, again, appreciate all the knowledge that you bring, and just the willingness to work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And right back at you guys. Like, I love following everything that you do, and I'm super excited that we got the chance to actually like connect while being disconnected.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, muchly agreed. We definitely can't wait to work with you more so in the future. If anyone has any questions for Alecia, please leave them in the comments. You can contact her through her handles, which she mentioned, or you can contact us as well, and we can send on the message to Alecia. We will talk to you soon.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.